Okay, so we're talking about the John Benet Ramsey case, and we're talking about some of the trace DNA evidence in the John Benet Ramsey case, and we've been talking about the beaver fur and the fingerprints, the sort of the sort of genetic fingerprint that it leaves, um, and how it could be very internal, as much as it could be considered external. Just be honest with you. I want to close this out on this one. So if I kind of move fast through this last bit of the analysis, then that's why I'm doing it. I'm trying to get through it. So, um, some of the considerations of alternative transfer mechanisms that we were talking about, trying to understand why um, this trace evidence would have presented in the way it did. How did the trace evidence get there, but we can't find the coat? How did the beaver hair get in the house, but we can't find the coat? So we talked about last time that given the behavioral improbability of a cautious intruder wearing beaver fur, so I mean, you wouldn't go to a crime scene wearing beaver fur. Like, there's got to be a very specific reason why you said yes. Yes, this is what I want to do. I want to wear beaver fur to the crime scene. No one would do that. So that's the improbability. And given the behavioral improbability of a cautious intruder, because if they did wear this, and they did, we would not consider you cautious because you know the trace evidence this is going to shed. So that's stupid for you to even consider wearing that. Alternative explanations must be considered. One such explanation is secondary or environmental transfer. In this scenario, the duct tape or another object may have come into contact with the beaver fur prior to its use in the crime scene. This could occur through storage, prior usage, or indirect contact with fur containing materials. While this explanation may account for the presence of the fur on the tape, this is where we ran into the issue, the contradiction. It does not fully address the presence of the animal hairs on the victim's hands, on John Bonet's hands. The latter suggests that the victim came into direct contact with a fur bearing surface or object during the interaction. This indicates that the source of the fur was not confined solely to a pre contaminated object, right? Like, it came into contact with the tape through prior usage. So it's not confined solely to this pre-contaminated object, but was part of the immediate interaction environment. This leads to a more nuanced interpretation. The fur may have been present in the environment of interaction rather than intentionally introduced as part of the offender's attire. And we say that to mean that it may have been present just as like a staple. I mean, it's always here. It's in the environment anyway. It's not like, oh, somebody brought it into the environment. It's like, no, that fur was here before, and it is getting under the tape and on the victim's hands because the victim is constantly in contact with that fur because the fur belongs to the household. So, kind of moving into, and I think we're kind of close, um, integration with victim behavior and interaction context. The behavioral state of the victim further informs this analysis. Evidence suggests that John Bonet consumed a pineapple prior to the fatal events, and that this consumption occurred without signs of distress. This implies a period relative calm or familiarity immediately preceding the fatal interaction. It is difficult to reconcile such behavior with a sudden, forceful abduction by an unknown intruder. Right, because when we think about what was happening just before, I love thinking about this. I love thinking about right before this happened. What was going on? What was the environment? The other day, I was watching. I just decided to watch because I was looking for something to watch on TV, and my wife wanted to watch Dreamgirls. Never seen it before. She loves it. I've never seen it, and I was going to watch it, but it was too late at night. We were both tired, and you don't want to watch it when you're tired. So I came across, when Amazon, suggests something else for you. I think they suggested, I think Crazy Sexy Cool, which was the it's like the movie about TLC. TLC was a popular R&B, all women's R&B group in the 90s into the early 2000s, the 90s more so. And if you were around that time, you're probably familiar with, or you cared about that music. Um, you're probably familiar with Lisa Left Eye Lopez, and her she was a feisty character. I like Lisa. I liked her. Um, um, Very intelligent, very witty with words, but she was no stranger to the camera in terms of trouble. And stick with me. I'm going somewhere. So it came to a point in time where Left Eye started getting more. Um, she started to want to do more inner work within herself, and so she went out to Honduras, and she was trying to do some inner work, trying to clean her health spiritually and mentally and physically. She was trying to kind of clean up her health, and so in that time where she was out in Honduras, she was doing whatever, and it came to the point in which may some of you may remember, some of you may not. Um, she and I might pull it up so you can see what I'm talking about. She was in a car and she's driving and it's very quiet in the car, right? And then all of a sudden, there's somebody's got a camera and they're looking around because they were documenting her journey. And then all of a sudden, you know, she had this Coca-Cola can or this Coca-Cola tin box in her hand, and then she looked back and handed it to the person that was behind her in the seat. And by the time she looks back forward, from what we understand, I think she tried to pass somebody. She was trying to pass somebody, and maybe she tried to pass them during the time that she was looking back, handing the 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 tin box back to the passenger, and a car was coming around, the bend or whatever, and to avoid hitting the car, she's just swerved, and the car went off the road. And so you kind of wonder, and I'll show you the clip. You kind of wonder what happened. That kind of tells us why did she swerve? You know, what happened? What proceeded? And so here's the clip. Okay, here we go. We're gonna go to Sambo Creek and get some shots.
Just getting footage of the vibe. You know what I mean?
No, we need to rent a car.
So as you can see, the moments preceding the car crash, you can kind of see what was the energy like, what was going on, what was happening. I love to try to understand that because I want to understand the mindset, the feelings, what was going on. And a lot of times, it was just a regular day, it was just a regular time, and everything was fine. Or it could be the case that it was very chaotic, and that's when we look at this John Benet Ramsey case, we try to understand what was going on prior to. Was it chaotic? Um, was it just a random scenario that just things went left out of nowhere? What happened, right? And so that takes us back to um, uh, this sort of integration of the victim's behavior in the interaction context, um, because if we are in a period of relative calm and familiarity immediately preceding this, it's hard for us to see then out of nowhere a sudden sort of like flip of a switch, right? It's like where did that come in? There had to have been something had to have been said. Someone had to just flip, and of course people can do that all the time. They can just, according to what they wanted to do in the first place, maybe they meant to do this the entire time, but it's hard to reconcile with, I guess, reality of what's going on, because during this time, John Benet is picked up from her bed. She's brought downstairs. They use the stun gun or they don't, right? But if they do, they put her to sleep. They wake her back up, with the stun gun. They keep her asleep with the stun gun. They wake her back up on the first floor, give her something to eat, and then they take her downstairs. And it's all this, just this jerking back and forth of inconsistency, and then all of a sudden, so obviously, and all of a sudden, John Benet is dead, right? But when we think about the relative calm that existed with John Benet prior to, what am I doing on top? Okay, prior to, if we think about the relative calm that existed, was John Benet existent in a I'm eating, I'm just eating, I'm having fun, I'm taking my time. What was the reason that she got up and stopped eating? What was the reason that she only ate one pineapple chunk? That's what we struggle to understand. Did somebody rush her and say let's go, or, and we try to reconcile that with, well, if you set her down to eat pineapple, what happened? Well, oh, I heard Patsy coming downstairs, or I heard Bert coming downstairs, so I had to, the intruder might say, I heard somebody coming downstairs, so I had to rush her downstairs, and whatever. Well, you were making yourself a glass of tea, so clearly you weren't in a rush. And even if you were, you get up, you drank all your stuff, you get up, you yank her down the stairs, but then instead of yanking her down the stairs and running out the door to get away, you start inappropriate interactions. So there's supposed to be a rush, but then you stop it again and you start going slow again. So that lets me know that you're not really in a rush. And if you're not really in a rush, there's a state of relative calm prior to what's about to happen, right? Just like with Left Eye, there is a sort of there's a certain state. Nobody is wrestling with anybody. Nobody's mad. It's just that you tried to pass and at a dangerous time and it just didn't work out. You know, that's why you're careful about just taking certain risks on the road, right? If we just look at it from that purely safety perspective, you can't pass everybody. You got to keep your eyes on the road. You got to be attentive to the road, right? And so with JonBenet, how did we get to the place to where all of a sudden things just switched, right? And so it's difficult to reconcile sort of this sudden forceful behavior by an unknown intruder. If the victim was in a non-threatening interaction context, the transfer of animal hairs to her hands becomes more understandable. Understandable. Physical proximity, causal contact, or even playful interaction could facilitate such a transfer without resistance. This does not in itself, identify the source of the fur. Of course not. We're not saying that, but we're just trying to figure things out. We're just trying to work through them, right? But it shifts the interpretive framework away from a purely predatory intrusion and toward a more complex interaction scenario. So the key analytical shift here in this report is sort of this reframing of the beaver fur evidence. Rather than treating it as a direct indicator of an external perpetrator, it is more appropriately understood as a behavioral inconsistency marker, in which it highlights a mismatch between the type of offender implied by the broader crime and the type of material introduced in the scene. This mismatch forces a reevaluation of assumptions. If the offender was highly controlled, the presence of beaver fur is anomalous, which means that if this person is highly controlled, then they're not going to use no beaver fur going in that house. That's an anomaly. I'm not about to, why would they do that? But there's a lot of anomalies. as we see in this case. There's a lot there's a lot of them, right? Uh, it's anomalous, and so um, if the offender was disorganized, the overall structure of the crime is anomalous. The so first of all, the presence of the beaver fur is anomalous in and of itself. If you're disorganized, the structure of the crime is anomalous. Um, to say that you're organized and all of a sudden you're not. The most plausible resolution is that the fur did not originate from a deliberate operational choice, but from a context in which such considerations were not primary, such as, I'm using this beaver fur intentionally, right? So, in conclusion, on that, and to close this one out, the presence of the beaver fur in the JonBenet Ramsey case cannot be fully understood through a purely forensic lens. Its significance lies in what it reveals about offender behavior. The material's high transfer potential, economic value, and distinctiveness make it an unlikely choice for a cautious offender to seeking to avoid detection. Correct. When integrated with the broader evidence, the beaver fur does not strengthen a singular narrative of intrusion. Instead, it introduces a contradiction that undermines the internal consistency of that narrative. It suggests that the interaction in which the fur was transferred did not conform entirely to the expectations of a controlled external attack, meaning that the presence of this beaver fur, as Judge Carnes says, oh, just because we can't find it in the house, that means it came from the outside. Well, not so. The presence does not suggest that it was completely external. Ultimately, the beaver fur evidence serves as a critical point of tension within this case. It does not resolve the question of offender identity. Of course, we're not saying that. We're working through it, but it significantly constrains the range of behaviorally plausible scenarios, which is what we're trying to do, trying to narrow it down. Any comprehensive theory must account not only for the presence of the material, not only for the presence of this material, but for the behavior required to produce it. So it's not just saying, oh, we have the beaver fur there. What does it mean? We have to understand the behavior around why would this be here. Now, before I let you go, I was working around some stuff in the text. And we talked about before, probably several videos ago. We talked about in some of the forums, they were talking about the beaver fur on Reddit. They in some of the forums and stuff like that, and what that meant, and nutria came up. Maybe it was this, this water rat that was similar to a beaver type stuff. Is that could be this microscopically similar to beaver. And so I was trying to dig deeper to understand what exactly did Patsy and John say about this, because the more we understand about what they said they were wearing and what they were doing, the more we will understand about them in this context. So, doing a little search in some of the project files. So there was a find on Photo 80, a Photo 80 reference when they were showing Patsy some of the photos that we want to highlight about the animal fur descriptions that we kind of see. So on Photo 80, the leather jacket on the kitchen stool that we mentioned several videos ago. This is a significant detail buried in the 1998 interview. When Patsy was going through the crime scene photographs, she identified Photo 80 as showing a leather jacket hanging on the back of a kitchen stool. She says, "This looks like the jacket I was talking to you, the leather one with the fur." Investigator Tom Haney then asks directly, "Do you know what kind of fur that is?" And so they're aware of some of this beaver fur. So these investigators are asking about this fur. So, do you know what kind of fur that is? Patsy responded, "I don't know. It's a strange name." She could not name the fur. She said it had a strange name. which is a significant detail. She acknowledged it was a specific named animal fur that she found difficult to recall. She then shifted to pointing out a bowl that she and John Bonet had made together at a pottery place, visible in the same photograph. The leather jacket, which belonged to John, was reversible and had what Patsy previously described as real low cut, black shiny pile fur lining, and was photographed on the kitchen stool on the morning of December 26th. And the fur type had what Patsy called a strange name. I laughed a few videos ago when somebody said, oh, it just disappeared. Maybe the intruder took it. The intruder took it. When would the intruder have taken it? That's what, and this is what I'm saying. I say that because you don't know sometimes the people that I go back and forth with over stuff like this, and it's like, this is how I know you don't know what you're talking about. Because if you're telling me the intruder took this jacket while it was sitting sitting in front of the investigators, so now I have to believe, in order to make this intruder theory fit, now I got to believe it's sitting on a chair in the kitchen and investigators are taking pictures of it. Now I got to believe that this person, who apparently they knew, comes upstairs, just unbeknownst to them, this is the intruder that was in your home last night. And the intruder is looking around and like, nobody knows it's me. Nobody knows I'm here. I'm undercover. I'm right where I need to be. But before I leave, I'm just going to grab John's jacket real quick. And the investigator's like, oh, you can't take that jacket yet. Let me take a picture of it. Click. Now you can take it, Mr. Unknown Intruder. And the intruder says, thanks, Mr. Cop. Puts on the jacket and walks out. That is what people are saying. Anyways, some of the verbatim inventory of some of the descriptions item by item. So Patsy's black mink coat. She called it a black mink, which is a full-length fur coat confirmed at the house, not in storage. It was fur. It was a type of fur identified by Patsy. She was confident in her identification. Okay. Patsy then went to the black mink muffler hat, which she said it's a black mink-like muffler kind of hat, like a ring kind of thing you wear, two balls hanging down, earmuffs kind of thing. Fur type identified by Patsy. She confirmed that it was mink. Now, when we look at John's reversible leather jacket with a fur lining, it was described as a leather jacket that has a fur lining, men's leather jacket. It was John's. It was reversible. When they were asked about the fur type, I think Patsy said it was like real low cut, black shiny pile. And when asked if it was real fur, she said yeah. Later, when shown photo number 80 and asked what kind of fur it was, she said, I don't know. It was a strange name. So I know it's fur, but I don't know what kind of fur it is. Now, if you remember a couple videos ago, we talked about how Patsy grew up in a family of modest means, but Patsy and John were new money. And so when Patsy and John are new money, they flashy. They're flashing. They're showing off. And in showing off, I know what I'm about. I know the name of stuff. You know what I mean? When I get a car, I'm going to be, when I get the nice car that I want, I'm going to be, oh, that's a 1995 Porsche convertible with the super exhaust in the engine and the dual tailpipes and this and that. It has these factory 20-inch factory installed rims and this and that, and it comes with the natural grout because of the V8, and you know all that stuff. Well, that's how Patsy was with these minks. She knew that stuff. She knew that it was fur. It had to be real fur because Patsy ain't trying to buy no fake fur. Because why would I do that? I got money now. And money ain't a thing. I'm balling. And so I'm going to buy the expensive fur, and I know the name of it because I need to know if it's real or not, because I'm not trying to be duped by no fake fur. I don't want fake fur. Give me the real thing. I'll pay for it. Right? But when she comes to this fur of John's, she's like, oh, that's a mink fur. This is leopard print. This is a leopard thingy. This, that, and third. What's that? Oh, What you talking about right here? Yeah. What kind of fur is that? You talk about this fur? Yeah. What fur is on John's reversible jacket on the chair? Oh, is it real? Well, let's start with, is it real fur? Yeah. Yeah, it's real fur. I know that much. What's the name of the fur? I don't know. It's like a strange name. Guess. Give me something. Nope. Not willing to guess. Why would Patsy do that? I'm not even going to guess. Why? Why not? See, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm saying. When we ask you about the pineapple bowl, when would John Bonet have eaten that night? Oh, I don't know. But I know it ain't me. What kind of fur is that? Oh, I know that's I know it's real. I don't know what kind it is. Whose bat is that? Outside of this door. Uh you know what? I don't know. I know we bought Burke a bat, but I don't know how the other bat. Do we buy Burke one or two bats? Trying to figure that out. I don't know. Whose tea glass is that? Well, we don't really drink tea in the winter. So somebody just walking in your house making tea? Pretty much. Cause I would drink it. Have you ever bought your son a pair of high-tech boots? High-tech boots, what are those? I don't know what those are. Huh. Hmm. Any other animal furs that you own? Isn't that? Ah. Yeah. I'm trying to think. Trying to think of what I do. Usually I can just rattle them off, but now I'm just going blank. I think maybe it's because I'm nervous. When it comes to this, it's like a black shiny, pile. I don't know the name of it though. Can you give me a guess? Couldn't even do that. Later, when shown the photo and asked what kind of fur it was, she said, "I don't know. It's a strange name." Fur type is unknown then. Patsy said it had a strange name. She couldn't recall. Um, she confirmed it was real fur with black shiny low cut pile. Now Patsy on number five. Patsy, her after ski boots. So this was a pair of after ski boots. They were black. Um, Patsy says, she says, I don't know what kind of fur it was, Technica or something like that. It had like a little Indian braiding around it or something, black fringe. It was kind of, I don't know, leopard fur kind of thing. When asked if it was artificial, she said no, it's real, but it was probably mink or something. Now, when we were talking about John's jacket, Patsy's, oh yeah, she went into detail, but she didn't guess what kind of fur his jacket was. She wouldn't tell us that. But when we go down here to these after ski boots, not only does she go into detail about what it is, where it came from, right? The brand, but she goes on to say that it's probably mink. She'll put her neck on the line for that. Oh, it's probably like mink or something like that. Okay. Um, she goes on. She says the fur type is unknown, but Patsy described it visually as leopard fur kind of thing, patterned, spotted, or mottled appearance, but guessed it might be mink. She was uncertain of both the pattern and the animal. And then John Bonet's shoes with leopard skin trim. Photo 55 on the crime scene. The little black shoes with the leopard or whatever skin on it. The fur type is described as leopard or whatever skin. pattern spotted, worn with her little velvet outfit. And so when going back to the point to where Patsy called it real low cut, black shiny pile, and what this tells us. This is the description of the fur lining in John's reversible jacket. And it's forensically specific, even though Patsy didn't know its name. A low cut pile means very short hair. So you have this sort of black shiny pile. It means the individual hairs are dark and have a lustrous reflective quality. This description is consistent with several commercially used real furs, including mink, otter, nutria, or beaver, all of which can produce a short, dense, dark, glossy pile when processed for garment use. See. People keep talking to me. See, I'm just trying to understand, and maybe you can help me with this. I'm just trying to understand if the call is coming from outside the house. How is it that the phone is always ringing and the call seems to be coming from the inside of the house? I don't understand, because what you telling me is that these people had absolutely nothing to do with it. John and Patsy had absolutely nothing to do with it. Then how are we getting so close? I asked you about several other things. What is this animal? What is this? Oh, that's mink. What is this? Oh, that's leopard. Oh, that might be mink, but it's all real. What is this? Oh, that's John's jacket. What's the fur type? Oh, I know it's real, but I don't. I know it's real, but I don't know what type of fur that is. Huh? Can you describe it for me? Oh yeah, it's a low cut black shiny pile. You know where low cut black shiny pile appears? In mink coats. Well, what do you know? Patsy has mink coats, and oh, John might want to flex a little bit too. Mm, spending all that money on houses, planes, cars, and boats, and vacations. You don't think John gonna want to flex a little bit? Oh, absolutely. You don't think John gonna want to stunt a little bit? Oh yeah, we gonna stunt. Oh yeah, I'm about to go get a black wool shirt from Israel that's exclusive to the area. Nobody's really buying this. When I go out of town to Europe, I'm coming back with some cigars that you can't even get here, and I'm gonna store them in the bottom room. Now you telling me that we got something. When I tell you I'm talking about the intruder, there is no way. And we haven't even said that this low cut black shiny pile is representative of a beaver. It could a mink could be mink. Let me find my spot. Mink, commercially used real furs, including mink, otter, which an otter could be close. You see what I'm saying? An otter could be close. Obviously, they're different. I'm not saying they are. I'm just saying. But when we say, oh, we're getting closer. Nutria, up. We're getting closer. Or beaver. Oh, there it is. Right there. Why, if you were nowhere around the crime. And I've been asking this if because people seem to think that, oh, it's just because their house it's lived in, blah blah blah, this and that. Yeah, we not just talking about lived in, we talking about your stuff being the central focus of the crime scene. How is it that all your stuff is the central focus of the crime scene and the intruder is barely on the crime scene? How is that? And it's on the inside, it's reversible. So you got it. We've been trying to figure out if somebody would have been wearing a jacket and you got a jacket that could have beaver fur in it. What? You got a jacket that could have beaver fur in it. I'ma keep going. The fact that Patsy said the name was strange is worth pausing on. Mink and mink are common enough names in American English that she likely would have recognized it. She already used the word mink comfortably for her own coat and hat. If John's jacket lining were also mink, she probably would have said so. The strange name suggests something less familiar, an animal whose name is not in everyday use, that opens the possibility of a nutria, an otter, or another commercially processed fur that is less commonly known by name. That's what we've been saying. That's what we've been talking about. We've been saying that you don't just know beaver fur. Like, you don't just know it. Like, I mean, you got to be in a place to where it's useful, right? And it's economically useful in the cold, like when it can really protect and insulate. It's a very insulating material. You would need that in Colorado, right? It can't be a foreign faction because why would a foreign faction be bringing that down here? Especially people who are hating on John from the Philippines. Oh, we're a foreign faction for what you did to us at the Subic Bay Training Center or whatever you did to us. Because what did John do? Not only because we got to think about this. If John is not the problem, you need John as bait. But you didn't take John as bait. You took his daughter. But then you unalived his daughter. Why? You didn't even need to do that. That wasn't even your main aim, your main goal. That's how we know this intruder theory starts falling apart. Because that wasn't even your main goal and it happened. How? Can we even believe you? So Patsy she should be able to identify this, and she's picking out furs that, oh, I know what that is, I know what that is. She's picking out left and right. But then all of a sudden, she can't tell us when it comes to John what it is. And you might say, oh, well, she's not half the job. She doesn't have to blah, 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 blah. Yeah, until we think about the fact that this is becoming a pattern. That's what we're talking about. When you try to take everything as a one-off instance, fine. But when we start taking things as patterns, well, she didn't want to explain this. She didn't have an explanation for this, and she didn't have an explanation for this. So everything is all of a sudden a coincidence with her. Everything is a coincidence with John. You try to give us 2 shirts, John, and the one that you wore on Christmas night was the one that came back as a hit in JONBENÉT's clothes. Uh-huh. You gave us your red shirt, and that came back in the ligature, that came back in the paint tray, that came back on her clothes. How did that get there? That's your stuff. Your touch DNA showed up on her pants, on her long johns, and on her Barbie nightgown that you said y'all couldn't find. And now you're telling me that this coat may or may not be beaver, and that coat. The fur may or may not be involved with something that John Bonet touched. What the leopard fur kind of thing that Patsy said tells us. For the after ski boots, the description is different. She said the leopard fur kind of a thing, which most likely refers to a spotted or mottled pattern, not necessarily actual leopard. Many after ski and winter boots in the 90s used processed pelts from animals with natural spotting or banding, including nutria, which, when processed, can take on a mottled brownish black appearance. Alternatively, she may have been describing a dyed or printed fur that mimicked a spotted pattern. The brand she named, Technica, was an Italian boot manufacturer popular at the time that used various fur trims on after ski boots. And I was looking up Technica, and that's not my thing. I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I didn't really know what I was looking at, so I looked them up in their ski boots, and they look like rollerblades to me. I'm be honest with you. So um, I was looking up different stuff. Um, Continue with this. Looking at some more about. Okay, yeah. I'm gonna skip through that. A processed fur garment, a coat lining, a hat lining, involves fur that has been tanned, treated, and structurally altered. Um, and trying to understand, I guess, the difference between like a pelt or something like that. An animal pelt is a more raw or minimally processed state. In a more raw or minimally processed state, sheds differently and retains different characteristics under microscopic analysis. Some after ski boot trims in the 1990s used what was essentially minimally processed pelt trim, closer to raw skin with fur attached than to a fully processed fur garment. If the dark animal hairs on John Bonet's hands and the beaver attributed hairs on the duct tape came from a processed fur garment, a forensic analysis would see processed cortex characteristics. If they came from something closer to raw pelt trim, like an after ski boot with minimally treated fur fringe, the hair morphology would look different. Okay. Whether that distinction was pursued in the laboratory analysis of those hairs is not reflected in the available documents and information. What is clear is this: the Ramsey home contained multiple real fur items whose specific animal origins Patsy herself was uncertain about, particularly John's jacket lining with its strange name and her own boots with their leopard fur kind of thing. From what we can tell, these were never forensically submitted and compared. And that is the gap that we are looking at. I want to go back to one more source before I close this out, because what I wanted to know was, when we're talking about this animal hair, this beaver hair. Okay, boom. What existed? Across all provided police reports and interview transcripts and litigation documents, the references to sort of these materials are always framed strictly around animal hair or fur. Um, and let me see if I can find it really quickly. Oh, yeah, this is what I'm looking for. Okay. In the transcripts of her June 1998 police interview, Patsy Ramsey helps us understand her winter wardrobe by describing a specific pair of boots to investigators, recalling that she owned black after ski boots that featured Indian braiding, black fringe, and leopard fur kind of thing. Now, we know John Bonet and Burke also had their boots kind of waiting for them in a bag. And I think they were going to take those two. I think they were going to take those two to Charlevoix, but I'm not sure. But she had some boots, and Burke had some boots in a bag. That was kind of, and that's what Linda Hoffman said. Um, but anyways, Patsy described it as a leopard kind of thing. Same 1998 interview, the investigators attempt to trace the exact clothing she wore to the White's Christmas party on the night before the murder, prompting Patsy to recall, um, prompting Patsy to recall that she likely wore a pair of black leather-like ankle boots rather than the furry ski boots. In his August 2000 police interview, John Ramsey gives us the storied context of what happened when law enforcement actually tried to retrieve the family's footwear, explaining that the police officially requested the clothes and the shoes they wore that night in December of 1997, roughly a year after the murder. Continuing his account in the 2000 interview, John explains that because the photographs taken at the party did not show their feet, he and Patsy could not remember exactly what shoes they had worn, leaving them uncertain of what footwear to confidently hand over to the authorities. I would, but I can't. I just can't remember what I was wearing. I bet you if I bet you if we didn't have evidence of what you were wearing in the picture, we wouldn't got that either. Because you would just said I don't remember. In the extensive Colorado Bureau of Investigation laboratory reports spanning from 1997 to 1999, forensic scientists meticulously logged the receipt and testing of dozens of critical crime scene items, including JonBenét's garments, blankets, the garrote, the duct tape, and various clothing articles belonging to the Ramsey family. Within these official CBI laboratory reports, there is absolutely no entry, record, or mention of Patsy's furry ski boots or her leather ankle boots ever being submitted by investigators or subjected to DNA and trace evidence testing. And so, as we look at the information, we can conclude that while the boots were thoroughly discussed during interrogations, and those animal furs and things of that nature were thoroughly discussed during interrogations, the historical record does not show that investigators ever successfully acquired or forensically tested either pair of Patsy's boots. So we don't know if they got them. That's one of those things, like when we talk about the phone records and the credit card records. We don't know if the cops got them and were able to use them and able to test them. Because I think they were saying that jacket just up and went away. We don't know where the jacket is. Where did the jacket go? We want to test it. Because John was wearing dark shiny, low cut dark shiny pile. And they said it was black animal hair. And possibly beaver hair. That black shiny pile could have been beaver hair. But we can't get the jacket. We don't know where it's at. Yeah. You know where I'm going. Let me know what you think in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. And take good care of yourself until next time. Take it easy.